Welcome to the Debatable Podcast. I'm Victoria Morris, and this is the second season of our show. We're bringing you the latest information, hot takes, and questions and ideas that you have about sports medicine. For those of you tuning in for the first time, please be sure to follow us on all of our social media. It'll be linked in the show notes below: our Twitter/X, our Instagram, and more. Participate in any discussions, polls, questions, challenges, anything I have on there, because that's how we get the show out. Today in this episode, we're going to focus on that non-traditional athlete. So think your marching bands, your concert bands, drill, cheer, dance teams, here in the west side of Texas, rodeo athletes. When it comes to these non-traditional athletes, us as athletic trainers, we tend to forget that they take just as much work, if not more work, in their athletic event as some of our typical baseball, basketball, football athletes, right? So today I have Jenn Corwin, who is a mother to a band son herself. He just marched this last Rose Parade, which is pretty freaking cool. She has a daughter in the Navy, and she's an athlete herself. She's a former coworker of mine with H2F team, so that's the holistic health and fitness team with the Army. You're the nutrition educator and the postpartum and pregnancy coordinator. And you also work really, really closely with our registered dietitians, our athletic trainers, our strength coaches on overall nutrition education, the nutrition standards for the Army, the H2F facilitator course that we do to NCOs about nutrition. And then you work really, really closely with our strength and conditioning coaches to make those daily workouts for our pregnancy and our postpartum patients. Another thing I want to mention is she just started her own business called Eat Smart, Train Smart to help clients with nutrition goals, personal training, other specialty services, combining youth all the way up to adults. Anything you want to add, Jenn?
Oh my gosh. So I've actually been I've been a band parent for a really long time because my daughter did band as well. So that's actually what inspired my son to do it. So I've been seeing the rigorous training that band athletes go through for a really long time. And I'll be honest, I was a sports kid growing up. I was not musical by any means. So this was a whole new world to me. So whenever I saw the hard work that they actually go through, I was like, man, these are athletes. Like, I never thought that they were athletes, but now that I've seen it for so long, 10 plus years, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yes, these are athletes and they should be recognized as such.
That's awesome. So you have a lot of experience both from the education, nutrition side of it, and then just being that mom and having to deal with the mom side of that band student.
Exactly.
What we're going to start off with really quick is I want some of the listeners who are listening right now to kind of get to know you a little bit. And so how I do that is I always have a fun little topic. And this week we're going to do this or that. So I have 3 categories. And the only catch is you can't say, well, it depends. So you can't be like, oh, it happens in the morning or, oh, it's in the afternoon, right? You have to choose one or the other. So the first thing we're going to do is, would you rather make a smoothie yourself or get one from the shop? So if you're on post, would you rather make it yourself or go to Smoothie King?
Make it myself.
Okay, why?
Because I know what's in it. I do like to use a lot of whole ingredients, and I know exactly what's going in it, and I tailor it to my needs. A lot of times protein shakes that are either pre-made, which I'm not against them, or I get them somewhere else, it's not tailored to my protein needs. So I like a really high protein shake. So I double up. I do like high protein yogurt. Sometimes I add protein whey. Sometimes I'm adding, the Fairlife milk to make it even more protein. And then I love frozen berries and avocado. So I really like to make it myself. As much as I can, I'll make my own.
It makes sense. That's a good choice. Me, I'm like, maybe from the shop because I don't want to and I don't have time.
It's like a sad little frozen strawberry.
Yeah, probably. Honestly, right now, probably. Okay, so now we're going to talk about breakfast. So this can be whether you made it, you went to the store, meal prep, whatever. But would you rather have a sweet breakfast, so like fruits, something like that, or would you rather have that savory breakfast?
Savory all day.
So what is your ideal breakfast?
I love steak and eggs. I love potatoes. I love potatoes in the morning. So yeah, like if I had like a potato, steak and egg bowl.
Potatoes with every meal.
Yes, I love potatoes.
So the last one, and I think I already have the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Would you rather prep for the week or wing it every day?
Prep.
So if you were to prep right now, like say you're going to prep your lunches for this week, what is your go-to?
My go-to, if I don't have anything planned, honestly, is rotisserie chickens. I love to go get rotisserie chickens and kind of debone them and then just weigh out the amount of meat I need. And then my sides, I rotate my sides. So this week it'd probably be rice, and then I would probably do asparagus.
Okay.
I do a lot of minimal meal prep stuff. I do. I always tell people meal prepping shouldn't make you feel like you have to be like a Michelin star chef. You can make it what you want, but don't expect that out of yourself. That's going to be too overwhelming.
Good to know. Now we're going to switch over to our pop culture moment. So this is something that was submitted to me by several athletic trainers, and after reading it, I can see why. But last year in the 2024 NBA draft, Purdue's basketball star basically said that he consumes 6,000 calories a day to maintain his size and his performance. It was all over ESPN, TikTok, Barstool. I mean, it's been everywhere since then. And some of the questions that came in were, number one, is this something that's actually doable and healthy for the average athlete? I mean, obviously he's 6 foot plus, almost 7 foot, like big guy, D1 basketball player going into the NBA. Like, but is this something that athletic trainers should be pushing to athletes of their high schools, their middle schools, or even their colleges?
I think what needs to be pushed more is just the understanding that what one person does isn't always going to work for you. I think we also have to take into account that he probably has people who are helping him and, carefully construct those meals. Or even if you were just to take the name off of it and just have an athlete of that size and of that caliber, he could definitely be eating 6,000 calories a day for sure. How's he doing it? Probably very carefully, trying to ensure that he's hitting all his macros. But is that going to work for a high school athlete? Possibly. It just really depends on, their size. I mean, that's the thing, their size and their activity level. Some athletes who are actually trying to gain weight, gain muscle mass, they are having to go into a calorie surplus to not only gain, but then maintain what they've gained. Because, you've got those athletes out there who they want to be bigger. And so they have to eat more just to kind of meet those goals. And then once you meet those goals, and if you're lucky and you got a really high metabolism and you meet those goals, you got to maintain. It's a lot to maintain, especially if you're an athlete and you're staying active and you're always moving. So I think it is doable. Was I shocked by that number? No, not at all. Because most people actually underfuel. And whenever I talk to athletes and I'm telling them, hey, this is actually how much you should be eating. And then we kind of go through a diet recall, and they're underfueling by like half of their calories, or they're shocked at how many calories they're actually supposed to be eating. And it's like, yeah, this is why you're not gaining muscle mass. This is why you're not dropping body fat, is because you're not providing your body with enough fuel to not only perform, but to also maintain the muscle that you have.
That's actually interesting. So I'm going to take that and add, so most athletes obviously are either trying to gain weight or lose weight. Most aren't trying to maintain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you go on the internet, and I went down a rabbit hole when I found this story, right? But there's performance trainers, there's nutrition people all over the TikTok basically that are saying this is how you should bulk, right? And I kind of threw it into two categories, the clean bulking and the dirty bulking, which if an athlete wants to get bigger and needs to increase the calories, what is the best way to do that for them?
I mean, it's probably going to be a little combination of both. I don't think it's ever black and white one way or the other way. Whenever I have somebody who's trying to gain weight, I mean, one of the best ways is to, let's look at what your fat intake is, because fat is a concentrated dose of calories, right? Because a lot of times, whenever you look at calories, you start to look at, okay, whole foods are very low calorie for a lot of volume. Well, a lot of times athletes, like, if you eat that much volume right before you have to go lift or train or whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to feel super full, super heavy, super slow, right? So sometimes it's increasing those foods that might have a little bit higher fat content, but it's also choosing what fats to get, right? I would much rather an athlete have, like, yes, a snack that's loaded in calories and maybe it's from healthy fats. So like some nuts, because nuts are actually a high fat food, right? So having some nuts and some other stuff versus just having some fries. Does that make sense? It's,
Yes.
It's, I'm not saying they can't have fries, because I think there is a time and a place for absolutely everything. Just like candy has its place, sugar, sweets, they have their place. But if we want to look at the long-term effects of dirty bulking, then your lab work's going to be affected. And maybe it's not affected when you're super young. So you think, oh yeah, I'm going to dirty bulk and this is how I'm going to get it done. But if you also slip into that lifestyle of constant dirty bulking, and then that the dirty bulking goes into, this is what I do every day, then that's when later on in life, though, that lab work comes back, and then it's a whole thing of changing behavior. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's having a predominantly like a clean bulking phase, if that's what you want to go through, but also incorporating some of those higher calorie snacks that you really enjoy because you are looking for extra calories.
Makes sense. So say you're eating that many calories, right? How's that gonna, we just talked about it affects your labs later on. So, but how's that gonna affect like your sleeping and your gut health? Because obviously calories are energy. So how does that affect you trying to sleep, getting enough sleep, making sure you're staying asleep, and then all the problems inside with our gut and all of that, right?
Yeah, so I would 100% say distribution matters. So if you're having that high of a calorie intake every single day, you have to make sure you're distributing it evenly throughout the day. Now, yeah, you may have some meals and then your snacks just might be larger snacks, or you just want to have all even sized meals throughout the day. We would just divide it up, right? This is how many macros or calories, this is what you need. How are we going to split that up evenly? And then we would also go into that timing piece, making sure that we're eating our larger meals, not too close to training and not too close to bedtime. Because if you're eating really huge meals right before you go to bed, your body has to do all that work just to digest and absorb and all that kind of stuff. So where you might be laying down and you think, oh, my eyes are closed, I'm sleeping, your body is still working. So I really say, try not to eat 2 hours before bed. So make sure your eating is cut off 2 hours before bed, because you also want to allow your body to digest it. And laying down right after you eat a ton of calories, it's gonna like GI upset, right? You could start getting like acid reflux and heartburn and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't realize it's because I literally just ate and then went and laid down. So we want to find that balance of what's the amount, what's the volume that we're eating, when are we cutting it off so that we're able to actually have a good night's rest? Because if we're affecting our sleep, your nutrition the next day is going to be completely out of whack. Because once you don't get enough rest, and then cortisol levels raise, and what if you're an athlete that's trying to lose weight? Okay, then cortisol levels are heightened. Their job is to store fat, right? And then your appetite hormones are out of whack. So you're going to think you're hungry when you're really not. You're going to start craving those things that you normally don't crave. So sleep is actually like the foundation of good nutrition. So it's super important that if you're going to eat that high of a calorie diet, for one, you work with somebody, as whether if you're a parent and you have a teen athlete who is really serious about wanting to, perform better, take that time and invest in their nutrition. And while, yes, that athlete needs to take responsibility for that nutrition too, I really encourage parents to get that professional help for them so that it's done in a way that's going to help them more than hurt them.
That's actually great points, and something that a lot of athletic trainers, especially at the high school and lower levels, we have those meetings with those parents. And I mean, we can't expect somebody to want to get on this great nutritional journey if the parents don't know how to do it, right? And don't know, hey, like, this is our budget for the month. How do we get this healthy? And I know you've pointed it out too with your clients and with your soldiers patients, but like kind of the whole family has to be in on it. It doesn't necessarily have to follow it, but like you can't have one person who's eating clean and doing all this other stuff while the family is like eating junk food all the time.
It's a family affair. And I really like to educate the entire family, whether it is I'm working with a soldier and his family or a client and their family. I really want everybody to understand the importance of this. And yeah, you're right. Just because it may just be one of the people in the house doing it, everybody else who's not doing will have an understanding of why they're doing it, why it's important. And they might be a little bit more sensitive to it, because what's worse than when you're sitting there eating your meal prep, that the macros are measured out, you're really working hard, and then you have, let's say, that annoying sibling that's like, oh, this ice cream is so good, like right in front of them, really bothering them. So I think sometimes it's having that compassion for that person who really is goal driven, even if they are middle school, high school, college level, it is a family affair.
I completely understand. So taking that and still in the same athlete, that, Division I level guy, 6,000 calories, how does the athletic trainer come in when that athlete gets injured? So they're going from doing all the physical activity they needed, needing that 6,000 calories to less. Like they're not, sitting down doing nothing. But what does the recovery nutrition look like going from that highly active, high calorie index to maybe, let's just say, semi-active, injured, maybe not consuming as many calories?
100%. I'm so glad that you said that because it happens a lot. What I would say is, so how I calculate calories is on activity level. And so what I always tell somebody who's injured is, okay, you're moving less, so we're going to have to eat less, right? Now, does that mean we change the quality? No, we want to still have a high quality diet, right? Still having the whole grains, the starchy veggies, all that stuff. But we just may not need as many carbohydrates as like a really active athlete might need, right? Because they just used all that energy up. I would say maintain a high protein diet. So the star of your diet should be protein, and then we would fit in everything else around it. High protein intake has been proven to maintain muscle mass during recovery. And any athlete wants to maintain whatever muscle mass that they have, right? Even if they're trying to stay lean, they still want to maintain their muscle mass. So it's also showing them, what does that volume look like? I'm a huge visual person. Anybody I work with, we do visuals. So I would actually show them like, okay, if you're normally eating 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of veggies, you're having, like 6 to 8 ounces of steak, and then you're moving a lot less. Okay, let's recalculate what those calories are for a less active person. Let's try to maintain the protein. But how many carbs are you really going to need? Probably 1 cup, right? But then also maintaining the veggies. So it's sometimes it's really small tweaks, but I mean, when you're used to eating a lot of volume, you have to be very aware that you have to reduce that volume, and you are going to feel hungry because you're used to taking in so much, but you have to continue to make those changes when you're not as active and when you're injured. And then also going back, another thing would be ensuring that they're eating a lot of fruits, things that have anti-inflammatory properties in them. Fruits and veggies are great. So, fruit smoothie, if they're craving something sweet, let's try to go for like, stuff like that versus just the packaged processed things, because once again, they're not moving as much in order to, be able to burn it off.
I went from an athlete to now I'm the injury reserve or whatever, right? A lot of that like mental part comes into, yes. So you have to play that. And then, I want to eat this ice cream, or I want to eat these cookies because I can't do what I normally do. And it's like, okay, make sure that you're not doing that and that you're swapping it in for something if you are craving that.
Hey, that is their comfort, right? Because food is very personal and we have a big emotional attachment to it. So let's say they are going through a really hard time mentally. They were a high performer, great athlete, and it is affecting them. What I would do is I would figure out what their calorie needs are, and we would budget in those cookies. But I would also talk to them about serving size. Like, hey, this is the serving size. I know it's not what you've had in the past. I know that it's, you want more than that. So maybe we need to buy individually packaged, or maybe you go out and you get them specifically just for that one time. But I would really work it in so that they do have some comfort while they're going through that. But I would also talk to them like, hey, this can't be a go-to for everything.
Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to go to our main topic. And that's, again, fueling that non-traditional athlete, just like the title says. So when we think of non-traditional athletes, we're going to focus more on those that our athletic trainers are dealing with. So our band students, our cheer teams, our dance teams. If you're from some of the bigger high schools, you might have like competition dance teams, or you might have a color guard with your band. Depends on the size, right? And then we'll throw in, if we get time to it, like some high schools are now esports is a thing, right? Yeah. And that's a whole separate nutrition, that activity level. They require more mental stuff. So we have time, we'll throw that in there. But that's what we're really going to focus on. So the number one thing that I, as an athletic trainer, and I'm working with band and stuff now, is I need to know how much carbs, how much fueling do these students need? I know just a week span, they have practices every day, and sometimes those can be 2 to 3 hours depending on what they're practicing for, right? They have that halftime show. They also have to be in the stands. They have to be at the pep rallies. Like, if it's a UIL year, they have to practice for the marching band competition on top of that. So they may have Friday nights and then Saturday competition. Just depends on. So how do they need to fuel? Like, what is just the basics that those kids need?
So when you're talking about, I'll just do band, right? You're talking about band athletes. These kids are not only moving their bodies, they're carrying heavy instruments, but most of, above everything, they're using their brain, because the music, like memorizing it, having to play it, the notes, that is so much brain work. So I will tell you that the minimum that their brain needs is like 130 carbs a day. That is like the minimum. And that's for brain function, right? Your brain needs carbs for just to work. So if you're not getting enough carbohydrates in, then you're gonna have brain fog. And so that's the biggest thing. So many people are fearful of carbs. Carbs have gotten like this really bad rap, but carbs are so necessary. Why? Well, it's because our body's first source of energy. So if you're not providing yourself with enough energy, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle mentally and physically. Band is such a skills-based like group, sport that it's like they gotta eat carbs. They need to eat carbs. And of course, carbs is really based on weight, right? So, I mean, it's nothing for an adult who's not very active, average height, average size, eating, like 250 carbs a day. But then let's look at a kid. I mean, especially a super active one. They're, of course, based on weight, based on their activity level, there's a lot that goes into it. But just think about this. If they're not eating at least 130 grams of carbs a day, well, they're going to struggle.
Okay. So if I was a band director, or even for the parents out there, what is an easy, simple way to get those carbs? And like, what should my kid be eating, snacking on? How can I get that to them without, having to cook complex meals and send them with all these foods or whatever? And stable, because they're outside in the heat too, a lot of times.
I think bagels are great. Honestly, a lot of people are like, oh, bagels so high in carbs. Well, when you have an athlete that's out there, yeah, a bagel in the morning is great. Honestly, Uncrustables are great. Uncrustables are high in carbs. So it doesn't even have to be Uncrustables brand, right? A peanut butter jelly sandwich, that's going to be great. The shelf stable stuff, it's also like, what would they like? What would they not like? I get all in the weeds with that, because I start thinking about, okay, how could I piece it together? I mean, if you have an athlete and you're going to send them off in the morning at 0 dark 30, because that's when they start, I would really want to make sure that they have some type of protein and carb, right? So I would be like, hey, if you don't want to eat, I get it, but you're going to need this for your brain to work out there, for you to stay in line, do your steps, play your music, keep your arms up high, do all that stuff. So I would say for breakfast wise, if they're not a big breakfast eater, toast, a bagel, they could even do a tortilla with peanut butter in it, English muffins, anything like that. Even making like protein balls, you could do like the little balls that are just peanut butter and oats. There's so many different recipes out there, but it's got the, honey. So it's a little quick boost of energy, but then, you've got your oats, which is a little bit more sustained because it's a complex carb. And I like to layer my carbs. I like to layer carbs with simple and complex, because you're going to use the simple for that initial spike in the morning to wake you up, but then you need the complex to carry you throughout. So, but it's also hard with teenagers because they don't listen. But at the end of the day, they're teens, and all you can do is encourage and be like, hey, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that. But it's I think it's just providing them with that, and they have to take the responsibility to do it as well. I know with my either my personal clients or even the ones that I work with at work, I provide a visual. I call it my macro cheat sheet, and I give it to everybody, and I say, hey, and I can actually give you the link. I'll give you the link if you want to post it. And it's a macro cheat sheet, and you can go on there, and what it is it has our carbohydrates that are broken down into starchy veggies, whole grains, fruits, and then regular veggies. And it will tell you what the serving size is for how many carbs.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Send that to me and we'll add that into the show notes so that they can look at that. So taking in the energy, right? Again, we know these are teenagers, whether they listen to you or not. What are some recommendations? So we've already got the protein, we've got the, carbs that they need in there. But now they're trying to go through the whole day. So say this is a Friday night, or this is Saturday competition, and they left at 3:00 in the morning and they're now at 3 in the afternoon waiting to perform, right? What are some good ways to have that energy and sustain them? I know I go out onto the tennis courts, into the parking lots, and see these bands practicing, and it's energy drinks everywhere, or it's Gatorade everywhere, and maybe a water thrown in here or there, right? So how should these students be fueling to get from 3 a.m. to whatever time night finishes? Yeah,
so hopefully they're getting some sleep. Because that's going to affect a lot. A lot of people, I do see energy drinks everywhere, and I'm like, and it's not that I'm like, I hate them all because if somebody's just dead set on them, I'm like, let's try to do sugar free. I just really don't like energy drinks for teens or kids. I really don't like that. I think that they're just way too young to be doing pre-workout and energy drinks. I think, and I always tell everybody, the best pre-workout is sleep. And I know I say sleep a lot, but the best pre-workout is a good night's rest. But when that's out of your control, what can you do? I would definitely say let's be strategic with the caffeine instead of an energy drink. If your kid, I mean, I don't know what teen these days really doesn't like coffee, because I mean, they're all always going to Starbucks, right? And do I like the high sugar coffees? No, but I would rather them have like a coffee than an energy drink, right? Yeah, or even having snacks that maybe might give them that sugar boost right before, whether it's tennis, like right before their match, or let's say but band, I don't think they're allowed to have a whole lot like on in their stands. They're not. So a lot of it is going to be like in the bus or at school. So I know you can definitely pack them the snacks, right? So once again, if you want it shelf stable and super easy, like that peanut butter and jelly, give them some fruit, give them some nuts, beef jerky, kind of provide them with all of that, things that they have, and this is big, things that they have already eaten that have proven to not upset their stomach.
If I'm a band director, make sure that it's consistent throughout the whole season. Like, I'm not going to just throw in a random new snack 3 weeks into competition.
So for athletes, for people who are very concerned about their performance, the one thing that I always say is don't try anything new on game day, because if you don't know how it's going to upset, like how your stomach's going to react to it, don't do it. If you're going to have to be out in the middle of a field staying in step, and then all of a sudden your stomach gets upset. And that even could be healthy stuff. Like you could even eat something healthy, and whenever you have that reaction of, you're getting hype, you're getting nervous, you're getting stressed, and your stomach just might react poorly. So really try not to eat super greasy things, super spicy things, where it may not affect you in any other setting, but it might affect you whenever your stomach is upset. So I really like to stay away from that stuff. Now, is that always the case? No, they still eat that stuff, but sometimes they pay the price for it, But, just like I tell soldiers, you need to practice what you're going to perform. So if you're going to, like, whenever they do their, AFTs early in the morning, well, they PT early in the morning anyways, you have to get your body used to having those snacks super early. Right. And we know football games are always in the evening, there's never an early morning game. So they've had all day, they've had that opportunity to fuel. I don't know that they're actually fueling. I don't know what they're doing sometimes, because a lot of them do fall out, not just from the heat, but from not eating.
I mean, that's one of the first things that we as athletic trainers tend to ask, whether it's a football player or, a band, they pass out, they fall out, and it's like, what have you had to eat or drink today?
Yep.
Like, and it can be nothing. I haven't had anything at all, or I haven't had anything since breakfast, or it's I had a soda and
pizza,
whatever was offered. Yeah, like I had pizza or whatever was offered to me. And then other times, yeah, I got hot. If they're like, hey, I had this, this, and this, and they can list it off, and it's like, okay, then it's probably more the heat, not so much what you ate, right? So you mentioned it a minute ago, on the bus is usually the only time they really have like that opportunity to really eat before they go up into the stands or they go to their competition. So what are some things you would suggest? Concession stands, because I know a lot of band competitions and obviously Friday Night Lights, like the concession stands are open. In that little third quarter, when they get their break from the halftime show before they have to start playing it, what are some things they can eat at a concession stand that would be okay for them? Like, obviously we're not talking candy, we're not talking sodas, but like, what are some options that they might have?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty impressed with the concession stands here, because before, when I've lived other places, they never had like restaurant food brought in. And so they definitely have that here, which can be, both positive and negative, stuff like that. Some of the main things I would say is popcorn would be great. Popcorn, beef jerky. If they're going to go up there and they have, let's say that in their water jug, because I know a lot of them have to carry water jugs. Let's say, and they're only putting water in there. Go get a Gatorade, go get something like that. If you really are like super hungry, and let's say they have hot dogs, I'm not going to say don't have a hot dog, but I'm also not going to, maybe have one, but don't have like a chili dog, where it's just going to totally destroy your stomach. Because I just think about when they get on that field in the heat, how is it going to affect them? I think about that. You think about that. Parents think about that. Kids don't think about that. Right?
Exactly.
I'm really not even opposed to chips, because a lot of times, especially out here in West Texas, it is so hot, right? that they are sweating so much that they need the salt. So I'm really not even opposed to chips and stuff like that. I just, once again, I would stay away from the super greasy stuff. And honestly, the candy doesn't bother me. Let's say that, because a lot of band competitions, they perform once to see if they move forward. If they move forward, they're performing again. And so sometimes, I would rather, for energy wise, I would rather a band kid, and once again, they've tried this, they've practiced it, it works for their stomach. I would rather them have some candy before they go on that field than an energy drink. Because that candy, quick spike, they're going to feel that energy, and then yes, they're going to come right back down. Where that energy drink has that caffeine in it, and that half-life is 6 hours. So you drink that energy drink at 6 p.m., you perform at 8, well, you still have 4 more hours left of that caffeine before it's even starting to taper down. So I actually don't mind candy for those really long days, like 30 minutes before you're going to go out there. Eat a handful of your favorite candy that you can stomach really well, and that will definitely help.
Okay. So hot dogs, good. Obviously Gatorade, and us as athletic trainers, we know Gatorade's great. And then candy is okay if needed towards those like longer days, and then popcorn is probably your best recommendation from a concession stand.
Yeah, and like I said, the hot dogs aren't my favorite thing. I'm a very realistic nutritionist. Like, look, I would rather you be eating something than nothing. So if literally you haven't eaten a significant meal in many hours, get the hot dog. Please eat something. Eat the hot dog, some chips now, and then maybe eat a little bit of candy before you go out there. Because I've seen those band athletes, those kids get worn out with competing. It's an all-day event. So I would rather them fuel than underfuel.
Okay. So we talked about fueling. Now the hydration, the biggest part of it, especially here in West Texas and really the whole state of Texas, right, is how does dehydration, so obviously we know they should be drinking water, right? But how can that affect their coordination, their memory, and then how much do they need to avoid getting the muscle cramps, the dehydration cramps?
So when people think of hydration, they always automatically think water, right? Water, how much water should I drink? But it's not water, it's fluid. It's not just water, right? And how many kids do we know that just love to drink water or fluids? Well, not a lot of them, because they're always dehydrated. So I always say, if you're somebody who's not super active, drink a 0 calorie or the 0 sugar Gatorade, because you're drinking it for flavor and some electrolytes. But if you're an athlete or a band athlete or, any athlete of any kind, especially if you're going to be out in the heat, don't get the 0 sugar. Get the one that has sugar, and make sure you're doing, like, Gatorade actually has a much lower sodium content. So even like Drip Drop, Liquid IV, those are a little bit higher, and they're also portable. I love the fact that they have the little pouches, which I know Gatorade does too, but the Drip Drop and Liquid IV, they do have more sodium. So that helps a little bit. And a lot of times these kids, they start hydrating when they're already dehydrated. They're not pre-hydrating. So you really need to be thinking about your next day's competition the night before, the day before, and thinking like, okay, don't overdrink, right? Don't overdrink what you need. But how am I going to set this up so that I'm prepared, so I'm not waking up already dehydrated, right? One of the things I like to do is if I am going to just drink regular water, I put salt and lemon in my water just to kind of get me started. And then I always have some sort of an electrolyte drink, and they have so many flavors out there. But kids are still not drinking. They're not, or they're choosing the sodas over the electrolytes and stuff like that. So let's say you have a kid, an athlete, who is really struggling to drink their fluids. Okay, talk to them and say, okay, do you at least like fruit? Because you can actually eat some of your fluids, right? Watermelon, berries, a lot of things like that have a much higher fruit or much higher water content that can help to kind of alleviate some of that hydration leading up to it. So my son was just telling me the other day, because they're doing band camp right now, one of his friends actually bought some watermelon to camp. And they were eating it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Watermelon has a huge water content, right? So if they're getting some fluid in and they don't even realize it. So it's really combining liquids with fruits.
Okay, so fruits, and then obviously water, electrolytes, Gatorade, Drip Drop, Liquid IV. How much water would you say a typical? So again, I know everybody in the band is different. Everybody on a football team is different. But for a standard, let's just say 150-pound band, trumpet, so it's nothing too heavy. How much water or liquid do you think they should get a day?
Because I do a calculation, so I actually calculated that in
Okay.
hopes that you would ask for that. Yeah. So, and I can actually give you the formula, so anybody listening, they can kind of calculate their own people's needs, right? So it's actually your body weight in pounds times 0.5.
Okay.
And then you add 10 to 20 ounces. That's what you just need throughout the day. So for a 150-pound person, they need about 85 to 95 ounces a day. That's just to not be dehydrated.
Right. That's just to maintain what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're going out there and let's say you had somebody who's really into the weeds, right? And they were like willing to weigh themselves before and after, you would want to replace the weight you lost on that weight after. So let's say you lost 5 pounds. Okay, well then you would need to drink to replenish. A lot of people think that that's fat loss, but it's not. It's not. But I do have a hydration handout that I will also give you the link to, and this will give the recommendations for fluid for exercise before. So I already had this made out, so I'm gonna kind of read off, So before, you want to drink 12 to 18 ounces before physical activity. Okay, 12 to 18 ounces, and that's fluid, not just water, and don't chug it, obviously. Now, during activity, you want to drink 5 to 9 fluid ounces for, let me see, every 15 to 20 minutes during physical activity. So 5 ounces are going to be like that lower end is going to be more for a kid, a smaller child, like an 80-pound child. And then 9 ounces for every 20 minutes is going to be 132 pounds plus, which is most of our high school athletes, right? Most of them are 132, unless, like you have color guard. I know some of them are very petite. So, it is weight, it does go by weight. So yeah. So as you get older and as you get bigger, you're definitely needing to have more closer to that 9 ounces. And you could even do half Gatorade, half water. They've even said that there's been a positive effect of even swishing like Gatorade just in your mouth and then spitting it out. You don't always have to just drink it, but there was a positive effect of just doing that. Because I know sometimes like you don't want to guzzle a whole bunch and then, you're up, you got to go do whatever it is that you're going to do, right? It's just wetting the mouth. Exercise that's less than an hour, water is okay. Water is going to be okay. But that's also if you haven't already been out in the heat all day long. But if you're doing like band camp and you've been out in the heat, then you're going to go into over an hour exercise. And that's going to be where you really need that electrolyte replacement for sure. But like I said, I have this handout. It's even got pictures of the little liquid IV and all that kind of stuff. It even gives the reasons, like what does electrolytes do on it. And I can send you that link so that you can put it up there for anybody to be able to access. Because I would much rather see hydrated kids out there. And I'm telling you, I've seen them pass out. I've seen them pass out in the stands, on the field.
When I was covering like small 3A rural high school text, at least once a game, I was called to the stands to go take care of somebody. And first things out of my mouth, how much food and how much water did you have today? And they spit it off and I'm like, okay, then it wasn't that, it was the heat. Or I haven't had anything since lunch and it's Friday night. Okay, so you haven't had anything since 11 a.m. this morning. Like, that's your problem. And you turn around and you look at it and you're like, somebody just give them something to eat. I don't care what it is, just give them something. And just for reference, like one bottle, just your Dasani Aquafina bottle is like 16.9 ounces. So you're saying that roughly most of our high school kids need about half a bottle of water for every 15, 20 minutes of practice. I mean, that's how much we're going through just to maintain what they are.
And that's that's so the water is for under an hour and electrolytes is for over an hour. So yeah, they're needing a half a bottle of something.
When you put it in that perspective, that's a lot. And I can guarantee you, as somebody who's been out there giving them the water, right, they're not drinking that much. It's just a quick squirt and then going back and doing whatever. In band, it's not like football where, you're coming off the field, or basketball, you're coming off the court, here's some water, right?
And you got people there for you.
Yes, they don't have replacements, so they're playing until the whole entire band stops and the band director or whoever's in charge is like, okay, now you get a break to eat, now you get a break to, but they can't have too much because they can't get in the instrument if they're playing a certain type of instrument, or hey, we're going on to the field now for the whole second quarter, you can't have anything because you don't have access to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these parents and a lot of band directors tend to forget that, like, hey, a football quarter can be anywhere from 15 minutes. If there's flags, it can be a 45-minute quarter, right? And you're now telling these kids you can't have anything and you're going to now go perform to the best of your abilities. All your athletic ability out here on the field, you can eat, drink after. So yeah, that's why we see a lot of people pass out on those fields is because you haven't eaten in an hour plus. Yeah. You haven't drank anything in an hour plus.
So I do know for my son's high school, because, I am that mom that sits right next to the band, probably unwanted because, I like to wave and be super embarrassing. The one thing I will praise the directors for is that, because they get on their little intercom things and they always say, drink your water. Like, they are always harping on the kids. I mean, the kids think it's harping. I think it's amazing. But they're always telling them, drink your water. And they're actually, so I know for the band my son's in, they're required to bring their water jug that has their name on it, and they're required to always have it. If they don't have it, then they get in trouble. So, and it is supposed to be full of water. And then I know that they also ask for donations for electrolytes. They ask for drip drop, liquid IVs, they ask for Gatorades, Powerades, because they do try really hard to provide all that stuff for them. It's, once again, it comes down to the athlete and the athlete actually drinking it. So I know I'm always like, have you drank your drink? To my super annoying parent, but it's just because I've seen so many kids pass out, whether it's during a game or competition, or even in the stands. They've passed out just in the stands. And a lot of it's like, did you eat? Did you drink? Okay, it wasn't that. It was they locked their knees or whatever. But it most of the time it's dehydration.
I will say, for one thing, for Texas athletic trainers, I don't know about other states, but band does fall under UIL, which is what all of our sports fall under, right? So as athletic trainers, band falls under our care. So again, if something happens, we get called. So a lot of band directors that are asking for donations, and again, they do it in the school district I work in now too, but getting with the athletic trainer, because we can provide the Gatorade powder for them to make. We can provide those coolers, the ice, everything for them to have. It kind of comes out of our budget. So that's just saying, hey, that athletic trainer needs to go to the athletic coordinator or athletics or whoever and say, hey, band falls under our care. We need more money to take care of them. But like, that's something I used to do all the time, is I would budget in, like, band is going to get 14 packets of Gatorade. They have to make it last them. But I make sure that on Friday nights they get a cooler, they get ice if they need it. A lot of times the band have it already. They're just like, hey, can we borrow your ice machine? I'm like, sure. Yeah. Or, on Wednesday night, pack some ice away for them. I'm like, hey, go take this to band while my machine makes more ice. If we had leftover food from, like, the parents would supply food for our football and volleyball players. If we had anything left over, it's like, give this to band, give this to cheer, whoever, because they're asking for donations and relying on that to fuel their kids. And there's a whole I like to say athletic medicine. There's athletic medicine, athletic training there that can help them with that too.
That's awesome.
And that's where a lot of athletic trainers like, we don't know how to help. We don't know what they need. So this is a PSA for band directors out there and for athletic trainers. Get together, talk, and see what both of you need. And then go out there and watch a practice. Go out there and watch, the competition on a Friday night and see what they're doing and be like, oh, they need this or they need that. I mean, it's high school kids. Like, this is why they go to high school half the time. And so, we got to find ways to fuel them. So now we're going to add in, we're going to switch gears a little bit, still under athletes, but a lot of schools are now including esports. And again, that falls under athletics, that falls under the care of athletic trainers. So how are we making sure that these athletes are fueling properly when they are notorious for, I guess, bad diets or fueling bad?
So I think the number one thing would be to separate their eating from their gaming. Okay. Because what happens when they're gaming? They're mindlessly eating, right? And I don't mean mindlessly like in a negative way, because a lot of them are insanely smart. It's that they don't realize that how much the volume in which they're taking in. So number one, ensuring that they have an eating schedule that is also going to work with their gaming schedule, and just making sure that they're still getting that physical activity. Right. And that's the personal trainer in me coming out as well, is making sure that they stay healthy, because their sport is mental. Right. And they're using their brain. So obviously they're going to need carbs. Right. So definitely I would talk to them about what types of carbs to be eating, layering those carbs, distributing that energy throughout the day. That way they're not eating a really large meal and then, eventually like getting really sluggish and then crashing and then not being able to perform well. So we don't want them to ever eat too much at one meal. And something that I forgot to mention, which I think is super important for esports, but really any athlete, is creatine. An average dose, 3 to 5 grams, that's like a little scoop out of a thing. Monohydrate, creatine monohydrate is so important for any athlete and is completely safe. And it's the most studied supplement. So I would really say to ensure that all your athletes are having creatine. Now, dosage wise, I would work with a nutritionist or registered dietitian if you want to dose higher, because there are higher cognitive benefits for higher dosage, right? But I would not give that recommendation out just because I don't want anybody to misuse that information. But creatine is super, super important. No, it's not going to make you gain weight. It's not going to dehydrate you. It's not going to do any of that stuff, right? I mean, there's a lot of myths around it. So I would definitely say, especially for, band and esports, because it's so cognitive. Not saying football and soccer. I mean, you have to be, in it, know your plays and all that stuff. But especially for an athlete who's just, their mind is just straight there on that screen and they're having to focus, creatine is super, super beneficial. Once again, just like, I would an athlete, if let's say an esports, they're about to do, a game, a mission, a match, whatever it is that you're playing, that's when I would do that spike of energy right beforehand. But I know that esports misuses a lot of stimulants. I'll say that, stimulants, right? So I would really want them to try to not use as many stimulants and focus on their eating habits and their sleeping. Are they not sleeping enough? Because I understand that sometimes their schedules can be kind of off depending on who they're playing and stuff like that. So really trying to maintain that circadian rhythm, the healthy eating pattern, and then getting in their good sleep.
So since we're already on the topic, a big question was like creatine and supplements for athletes in general, right? So focusing on those non-traditional esports, the band, all those things. You mentioned creatine is great, and agree. I love it. Lots of studies out there. What are other supplements that I wouldn't necessarily say recommend, but you would be okay with that non-traditional athlete using, thinking of those stimulants or anything like that? What are you okay with saying, hey, these are good, but you wouldn't maybe necessarily recommend?
Well, now if it's an injured athlete, I would recommend collagen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, collagen is great. So let's say you're going to have a student come to you.
Yep.
If they were to have some collagen with some orange juice, mix it up because vitamin C kind of helps you absorb it. Then right before that they do that session with that athletic trainer, it's actually going to help that injury a little bit more, right? Especially if it's like, ligament tendon, stuff like that. But I'm huge on collagen anyways, just because, once you hit your 20s, and this is like for the old, 20 and up, your body produces less and less of it. So I'm really big on collagen. I'm big on creatine. And if we want to talk about supplements, all supplements, I mean, I'm a huge supporter of protein powder. It's really hard for some people to get all the protein that they need in, and it is shelf stable. So you can really take it with you anywhere, store it anywhere. I have protein powder. Sometimes I'll buy those Fairlife protein shakes at the convenience store. If I'm low on protein, or I'm in a rush and maybe I didn't have time to make my smoothie, then I'll grab one of those. Caffeine, I don't mind caffeine. I think caffeine is great as long as it's used appropriately. I mean, you've got a lot of people who are misusing it, and I mean, they're going way over the recommended dose. They're doing 500-600 milligrams a day, and then they wonder why their performance is not good the next day, why they're not able to sleep, why they feel jittery. They think that they have I have anxiety, and it's no, you're just drinking 800 milligrams of caffeine. So you can't calm down, and then they feel all hyped up, and then they can't even calm down enough to perform well. So I think a lot of supplements do have their place, and some of them do have a placebo effect, right? And if it does, it does. But I think it's just how you use it, and of course, age appropriate. So I mean, kids are drinking, like I said, Starbucks and stuff like that. So to say that they can't have a coffee, that's ridiculous.
So taking all of that, and say you were given 3 minutes to stand, so you yourself are given 3 minutes to stand in front of the band parents before the year. What are the topics or things you would say to really highlight and iterate to those parents in that little elevator speech, that little introduction speech to them, to say, hey, this is what you need to know for the year. This is what your kids need to know. And come see us if you have any other questions, right? What would you say in those 2 to 3 minutes?
I would say, first and foremost, never be afraid to ask a question. Never be afraid to ask me something for your student or for your athlete. That is why I'm here. I'm here to help them. A lot of people don't want to ask questions because they fear, well, it's a stupid question, or I don't know my kid, or I don't know how to parent because I don't know this information, right? It's okay to not know everything. You probably know everything about something else, but let me know everything about this and help you. Right? So first and foremost, being able to just come and ask for that help. Two, it's, hey, we got to keep these kids hydrated. You know, they have to be drinking fluids, because if they're not, they're going to be more prone to injury because they're going to be disoriented. Whenever they fall, some of them are carrying really large instruments. They're going to hurt themselves. So if we want to keep these kids safe, we have to keep them hydrated. Number two is these kids need to be eating, but they also need to be eating healthier foods. I understand that teens have a kind of a specific diet, and I'm okay with that, right? It's about compromising, having some things that they really enjoy, but really trying to encourage them and educate them on the benefits of eating the healthy foods, right? So it can be a mix. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be a mix of something. If they want to eat pizza rolls, then they need to have just as many broccoli as they do pizza rolls. So I would definitely go into telling them a little bit about the importance of that. And then I would really, really emphasize, and this would be for everybody, parents and band directors, sleep.
Okay.
Sleep should be the priority, because teenagers actually need more sleep than adults. They need more sleep. And I can't remember how much it was. I think it was like teenagers need like 10 to 12 hours or something like that. But yeah, because going on my little sleep, and I would probably do this too, I'd go on a little, soapbox on sleep. But if your body cannot repair itself, and at the same time it repairs the brain, right? So if your child is not getting off the devices or getting home super, super late, and they're not able to get sleep, then their brain and their body are not going to be able to even repair for the next day. If your brain doesn't have so many REM cycles to be able to wash off that plaque, to be able to be refreshed for the next day, you're going to be foggy. You're not going to remember things, and you're going to get frustrated with yourself. And let's say you're also, have a little bit of an injury. How's your body supposed to repair that injury? So you need to be able to provide yourself with all of that. Now, I understand that sleep is not going to always be priority, and they're not always going to get that much sleep, right? But on the days when there is no reason why they shouldn't be getting a lot of sleep, that's what they should focus on. They should focus on getting adequate sleep.
Okay. So basically, sleep number one, hydration and fueling, and then ask if you have questions, reach out. If somebody did, so whether it's an athletic trainer or whether it's the family or the kid that has questions, what are some things that you would say you would like them to come to said meeting, or however they're meeting you, what are some things you typically ask off the bat?
What are you currently doing? Let's say they're like, oh, I want my child to be able to eat healthier, right? Or I would be like, okay, well, what are you currently doing? And if they're like, oh, well, just give me a quick rundown of what does a typical dinner look like? Do they eat breakfast? Stuff like that. And if they're like, well, they don't eat breakfast, I'd be like, cool, let's start there. I would just want you have to be your own historian when it comes to your diet, right? So that would be things like, come to me with the information, that you already have, be willing to share it so that I can help you. Because a lot of times they're just not eating breakfast, right? Which kind of sets the tone for the day. And if they don't like breakfast, I'd be like, okay, well then let's do, like I said, like a quick bagel, or because it's not a full meal, or what about a protein shake in the morning? Because my son, he does not want to eat breakfast. He does not. He won't. I've made it. He doesn't eat it. So I make him a protein shake in the morning. He drinks it, and then he takes an Uncrustable with him so that by the time he gets to school, he eats it really quick, and then that way he got his protein and his carbs, right? So I would just be like, hey, just be willing to share just a little bit of information with me, so that, because sometimes it's a quick little fix.
So if you were to recommend, or if I as an athletic trainer were to recommend, you would probably say a food journal, or any kind of with sleep journals added in and times would probably be the best thing. And then just obviously be willing to give that up. Be like, here you go. Or
pictures. I love pictures.
Okay.
I actually prefer pictures. I don't even need you to write it down and all that kind of stuff. And kids always have their phone. So if they tell you they can't take a picture of their food, then they're lying. I would, if I worked with a student athlete, then I would be like, hey, throughout the day, I want you to take a picture of anything you're going to digest, whether that's a Coke, a bag of candy, your breakfast, let's say you get a school lunch, any snacks that you have after. If you just had just a couple, 3 days, 3 days is all I need to get a good idea of what your eating pattern is. And I can start doing tweaks. And I will never expect an athlete or even just a regular individual to make insane progress overnight. No, it's going to take a long time. So it's small changes. So also being patient with yourself too.
Okay, so on that, I didn't have this, but it's actually a good point. What would you say to a student athlete who's wanting to make change? Doesn't matter, weight loss, maintaining, bulky, whatever it is. How long should they stick to it and start to see? Because again, like they're not going to see it overnight. They're not going to see it by the end of the week, right? But when should they be concerned if they're not seeing any changes? Like when is that like ideal time frame for you?
For me, if I don't see any physical change or energy change or any kind of change that we're looking for, if I don't see that in 4 to 6 weeks, okay, then something's going on. Either you're not doing what you say you're doing, or it's a health issue potentially, right?
Okay.
So 4 to 6 weeks.
So you're saying give it about a month or a little over a month, and then if you're not seeing it, we should make changes or look further.
Yeah.
The last thing we have is a question from athletic trainers, because obviously they do pre-participation physicals for band as well. So, they do the checklist. They have to go to the doctor, get cleared to do it. So what are some things that we should be on the lookout for medically wise? Like, I know like you're not super into it, but like, what are some things as far as medical conditions and the nutrition that we need to, obviously diabetes, we need to be, fueling them that way. But what are some really big things that you think we should be on the lookout?
Obviously, diabetes. Are you ever lightheaded or dizzy? You ever have like blurred vision? Stuff like that. Do you ever feel winded really easily? A lot of those things, especially the lightheaded and dizziness, that a lot is not eating,
okay.
Or not hydrating enough.
Have you ever passed out during or after exercise? So it's yes or no.
I ask, like, have you passed out before or after exercise? I would say, whenever that happened, what did it look like? Like you're eating, what did it look like? Because if they're like, well, I did pass out, but I also hadn't eaten in 8 hours,
right,
it's one of those things. Because it's like, okay, was it a real health issue, or was it you haven't eaten, didn't have any nutrition in you type of thing? Because here's the thing, if they've done it before as a teen athlete, they're probably going to do it again.
Right.
So it's kind of catching those behaviors, those meal patterns. So if they've already experienced that, more than likely they're young, right? Then they might be more prone to, it might happen again, because they might not have changed that pattern. They may not even understand why they need to change that pattern. So I think asking like, well, had you even eaten around that time?
Okay, that's a good one. The only other one I would think that would really pertain to nutrition is there is a question on here, and it's again a yes or no question, but it says, do you want to weigh more or less than you do now? So typically if they say yes on that, we ask them like, why? Why do you bulk? Why do you want to? So should we be concerned if somebody puts that on there, or is that just more of another ask why question?
Be concerned. I would want to know why, and how do you plan on doing this? Yeah, because sometimes they rely on TikTok and stuff like that to provide them that guidance. So I think if they say, well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eat a lot of this, then that's when the athletic trainer can be like, well, hey, how about you talk to somebody who is kind of in that field, or talk to the parent and be like, hey, are you aware that your child has these goals? And we just want to ensure that they're doing them in a healthy way, because they've already voiced that their plan is to do A, B, and C. And we think that there's a better way that they could do it.
Okay. I think the only other one on here, and it's not really a question, but they do ask it, obviously for the females, like, when was your first menstrual cycle? When was the most recent one? And then how much time do you usually, because I know like that is tied to nutrition, that can have a lot to do with it. When is like something we should be concerned with if we see it on, like, one of the questions is how much time do you usually have from the start to finish? And then how much time do you have in between? Like,
yes.
Is there some red flag in there?
Yes. So if you have a female who is having really heavy periods and they may already have endometriosis, we don't know, right? But their periods are long in duration, they're very heavy, they could be at risk for being anemic. A lot of females who cycle, they are anemic. And so I think knowing that is really important, because you can be like, okay, this athlete, we might need to watch them, because what happens when you're anemic? Well, you get lightheaded, and maybe it's, taking all of this and combining it. What if you have that athlete who's like, yes, I have been dizzy, I have passed out, their nutrition's on point, but they're a female who has like a period for, 8 to 10 days, they bleed very heavily. I mean, I've encountered that. And it's like, okay, it's the anemia that is causing the lightheadedness. They're not getting enough oxygen. And so that's the culprit, right? So it's kind of taking that whole picture approach and being like, okay, this may be it. You might also, if they go a long time without having a period, then that's not good either. That means that something is going on, that either they're incredibly stressed and we need to look into that, or their body fat is really, really low and it doesn't support them being able to have a normal cycle. So no cycle is going to be really hard on a female, especially in high school, middle school and high school, and then too much, right? Because we just don't want to have our athletes being, super anemic. And a lot of times, I think it's 15. I'm not quite sure that usually primary care will start ordering labs on kids. And it's super important. The diet that we all eat here in America, it's got a lot of holes in it. So I also always, another supplement I forgot is a multivitamin.
Okay.
I would rather you take it and not need it than need it and not take it, but always getting those labs done every single year to see where those micronutrient values are, because if you're deficient in any of them, that's going to wreak havoc on your body. You're going to be doing your best and you're just going to feel really bad. So I really say talk to your doctor and get that lab work done.
Okay. So I think that's all I'm looking at. I think that's all the questions I had. Is there anything you want to say, push out, that I didn't mention that you want to put out into the universe?
I just want people to be really real, and I want them to be real about nutrition. It's not an all or nothing thing. So many people think coming and talking to a nutritionist means I'm going to tell you, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have that. And a lot of people that do come and see me, they leave and they're like, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I think having that understanding that we're not here to take away, we're here to add to, and to just be really open to the idea of talking to somebody about your nutrition, because nutrition is for your life. And then just being patient with yourself. Being patient with yourself if you're trying to make changes, being patient with yourself if you're not seeing the progress you want, because sometimes, it does take that 4 to 6 weeks to show progress. So just be patient. And if anybody needs me, they can always reach out to me. I absolutely love working with people on their nutrition. I get super excited about it just because there's so much you can do. And I'm definitely not I'm not into restrictive. I'm not into avoidant eating. I'm very much into, hey, how can we make this work for your lifestyle? And that's a real approach, because so many people, they take unrealistic approaches and they get really frustrated and they think it's them. And it's not a them thing. It's the approach that's not working. So I wish people would be a little bit kinder to themselves. But that's pretty much all I have. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for asking me to come on here. If any of your athletic trainers have any more questions or just ever want to reach out to me and just say, hey, I have a quick question about this, don't hesitate.
Perfect. So if they do want to reach out to you, I'm going to have the link to your website and all that. But what's the best? Do you prefer them go through the website? I know it has email on there. I think, would you rather them email you? Like, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I think I even have my phone number on the website. I have to check, but email is great. If they email me, honestly, I'll probably end up calling them from my phone and then they'll have my phone number. So, but yeah. And then also on my Instagram, my Instagram, I'm trying to put more information out. So like 3 easy ways to get 25 grams of protein in for a snack, 3 easy breakfasts. So I'm trying to push out that information for people who kind of aren't sure what combinations to make. And then I'm also going to be putting out like quick and easy meal preps every week. So if they just want to follow me, then they'll at least get those little quick tips and tricks, to help them along the way.
So obviously, if you're listening to this, or if you're listening later to the audio version, you can reach out to Jenn. She'll help any of your band or athletes one-on-one. I'm sure you're willing to do like a Teams meeting or come out if it's here in El Paso to any of the high schools. I know you would love to do that. So again, just reach out to her and via email, text, whatever, and get her to do all the wonderful things you do. Again, she's also got that personal training on the side. So if you have any band kids that are wanting to look more into physical activity, or you have those athletes who need more of that one-on-one that their sports coach can't provide, she would be a great resource for that as well. Just trying to put it out there, help your business out a little bit.
I love teaching classes. classes. I do nutrition 101 classes. I do performance nutrition where we get deeper in the weeds. I can really tailor a class to what anybody needs when it comes to nutrition. So yes, reach out.
Having sat in on her classes, they're great and they're really practical. Anything from, what to buy at the grocery store, what's cheap and what's good for you, to here's how to make a cheap meal. I mean, like, you taught one of my soldiers how to cook in the barracks, which is, if you think about it, that's like a college dorm. They don't have access to a true kitchen, right? And he still mentions that today, like, that she's the reason that, I know how to cook.
Yes, I loved it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. For those of you that are listening to this in the audio version, if you have any questions, information, all of Jenn's information will be linked at the bottom of the show notes, her social media, her website, and ways to contact her, and then all the information she's going to send to us to share. I hope that you had a lot of fun, Jenn. I know I did. And I hope that our listeners were able to get some good advice and maybe a better understanding of how to hydrate and fuel for those non-traditional athletes. To anybody listening to this, if you want to get in on the action and be a part of our show, make sure to follow us on all our linked social media. Again, participate in those polls, those questions, those challenges I post on each social media, and then tag us in any topics or submit episode ideas. And then lastly, we need you to keep this show going. Spread the word, leave a review on whatever service you're listening to us on, and then share, retweet all those social media posts, and just tell your friends to download and listen. And just remember that without you, there is no show. So again, thanks for listening, and just remember that everything is debatable.